Chapter 7, Blood Don't Make You Family. We had a new dad, new names, new house, new church, and new school. I hated the school we went to. We had to walk through the graveyard to get there. I would always see this big cave-looking tomb. We were told that it is where Jesus was and rose from the dead. I really believed that that was the exact gravesite Jesus had risen from. Being a kid sucked. You had to just go with what parents said, even if they were wrong. We didn't like this man. She did. We didn't marry this man. She did. So whatever happened to us was her fault because she put us with him. All my mama saw was she had 3 kids and no job. This man was in the military and would take care of her. Her father was in the military, so maybe that's why. All she had to do was be a housewife, so she thought. Summer was his child, and needless to say, she was bat crazy. I believe bipolar certified, which she could have gotten from my mom and her dad if you ask me. I tell you, I praise the Lord for my mind. Even though I wasn't bipolar, I had other mental issues from past. Abandonment, physical abuse, as well as mental abuse. That's why I had to get counseling. I wonder if any of my siblings had gotten counseling. Summer needed attention, even if that meant putting on a show. A show was what she was going to get. My stepdad's ways of cheating and beating on my mom came back to harm us. My mama knew about the countless women who sat in the church and smiled at her and were sleeping with her husband. We were not just members of the church. We were a part of the choir. We saw and heard it all. Think kids don't pay attention? One of the women he was messing with was my sister's best friend, Felicia's mom. We didn't know how deep the affair was until that woman killed our dog. He was a beautiful, all-black Rottweiler with a brown tail. Samson meant the world to us. Felicia's mom ran over our dog Samson, over with her car, on purpose. My mom was hurt as well. It was also confirmation for what she already knew. My mom started building a nest somewhere else. We just didn't know her nest was with the garbage man, Mr. Todd. This trip, I needed love, fun, food, peace, lots of hugs, and sun. There was no guarantee Summer would even show respect. It was my money too, and she was not on my agenda. June had been calling almost every day since we were getting close to the trip, trying to pump me up. She already told this girl we were coming. She knew from the last trip to Vegas, I was only trying to make it for her and I. Here June was calling. She started regularly. Hey sis, how do you feel? How's the baby? Then came, sis, look, I know you got issues with Summer. She really feels like no one loves her and no one comes to see her. I said, well, someone who wants a relationship with you wouldn't always threaten to fight you and call you out your name. The last trip to Vegas was supposed to be in June, and I did that. As always, she got to running off her mouth, and somehow this sister trip turned into a birthday trip for our mother. My mother invited Seth and said that she would pay for our brother's bus ticket since he was living house to house in Los Angeles. He caught the bus from Los Angeles. I caught a flight from St. Louis, and my mom and sister caught a flight from San Francisco. June made me upset about this. It felt weird because I hadn't spoken to my mom in almost 3 years since she had clowned at my wedding. My sister wanted me to let it go. She wanted me to be happy to see my mom and for her birthday. And I said, June, ask me how many times mommy has come to see me in St. Louis. I've been here since 1999. Go ahead, ask me. She said, Alita. I said, June, she has been here twice. She didn't even care. I went all out for her birthday. June didn't care how you treated her. She was determined to get this broken family together. I said, you know mom's biggest complaint in life is that she never had a birthday party. Here I go, a grown woman, still trying to make her mom love her. The mom who gave her up. I've been wanting to see her, appreciate, and love her. I went all out. I planned a very special birthday party. June, a birthday party for the same woman that called Jehovah's Witness every time it was our birthday and Christmas. June started laughing. I started laughing. I said I paid to put her in the East St. Louis Monitor. It had beautiful words of love that were written. June said I saw that. It was really nice. I said I called the family from St. Louis. We all met up at the Golden Corral. We ate, we talked, and laughed. I even bought a half-sheet birthday cake with her picture on it. She had gifts from me, sis. I wanted to give Mom the world. I believed that we were on our way to a better relationship. That was May of 2023. That was May. That was May of 2013. She went back home. We kept up our talks. And August 2013 was the second time she came. Sis, she acted like I wasn't even her daughter at my own wedding. June said, I'm sorry she did that to you. I said, 3 years later, now that our mom has been a part of the planning, now let's get the money complaints and let them begin. Thanks, June, for setting me up with this one. As long as I saw my twin and my sister, June, I was fine. I hadn't seen Seth for years. If you didn't hear from Seth, then Seth was okay. When I did hear from him, he was calling for money or some other type of help. My brother kept me worried about him. I always prayed God would protect my brother. He was the only biological brother I had. I had 3 god brothers. One passed away, Courtney Taylor. He was the truth. If you were family, he rode with you. Courtney, my brother, with the biggest smile and the biggest heart and a one-hitter quitter. Courtney could hit you one time and fold you. Courtney made sure the first hit would be the last hit. My brother Seth also knew him. His mother and brother had just moved back to the area. Courtney went to Fairfield High School in Fairfield, California with me. He moved to Seattle when he got older and had a wife and kids. He was trying real hard to turn his life around. He got murdered at Jack in the Box, trying to break up a fight, and the other party responded with gunfire. He got shot. My god brother had been murdered. They didn't even let his own brother, Jason, out of prison to bury him. Courtney's brother Jason was doing time in prison in Arizona. He did 15 years over a white woman who lied and screamed rape. Once he declared it was over, people that use their privilege should feel ashamed. I just pray that the Lord has mercy on her soul. To tell a lie that takes someone's freedom. I declare and decree right now that in the name of Jesus, any person who has falsely accused someone and has cost them their freedom, I pray that the Lord Jesus Christ makes them so miserable until they burst out with the truth. And every falsely accused person be released and get paid for it. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. And that is not a curse. God knows who they are. Nothing they do will prosper. Courtney's mom had a heart of gold. She tried to adopt me when I was 13 years old. At the time, I lived with Mama Julia at my foster home. She didn't deserve to have her son murdered, nor have her only son falsely accused of rape and locked up. I was sick of losing people. Courtney's mom worked at our school, Fairfield High, as one of the people who told us to go to class during passing periods. Our campus was huge. It was like a college. But then again, it was California. Her background came back that she didn't pass. We cried because they used to pick me up and take me out to eat. We would go to her house and just spend time. And then I always saw both of them at school. Mrs. Taylor, we called her Mimi, was sad. She said she always wanted a daughter. Hell, I wanted a mama. I was so lost when she called and said that Courtney got killed. And he left behind 5 kids. It gave me a reality check to never stay too mad at Seth because I saw firsthand losing a loved one was hard. I didn't want to imagine burying Courtney. I never thought those words would fall from my mouth, let alone Seth's. It hurt so bad. It made me want to protect Seth, but I didn't know how to. Seth lived in LA, the real Los Angeles, the real Hollywood, the one you don't see on TV. There are a lot of struggling people and homeless people more than you think trying to make it. I would get asked all the time, why would you move from a beautiful place like California to freezing St. Louis? Well, the answer is, first off, I was only 15 getting ready to turn 16. And I was in foster care. My aunt from my mother's side of the family, who I didn't know, reached out through letters. I didn't want to leave, but God told me clearly if I stayed in California, I would be dead, in jail, or have 4 or 5 baby fathers. The voice of the Lord was so crystal clear. I couldn't wait to leave. I knew it would save my life. My brother didn't have the same opportunity. My mom called the police on my brother when he was 14, and they sentenced him to rites of passage, an all-boys boarding school. He was so short and little like me. When we left McLaren Juvenile Hall in Los Angeles, Seth was different. He went from home to home until he ended up back with my mom. And then Seth was gone again. We never had been in separate states before. I don't know if my mom will ever went to see my brother, but Grandma sure took us up there to see him. That was a long drive. Nevada was hot and in the desert. When we saw him, this dude grew a whole foot. He was a track star now. Seth was excited to see us, show us everything, his routine, his schoolwork. It wasn't easy taking the drive with June and her 3 kids, but Grandma made it work. Grandma said Seth is my baby too. We were all very proud of him. That is my twin, who is now taller than me. I guess I was going to stay short. Seth being my only brother and the one who went through war with me, with our father. I couldn't wait to see him. Once I got settled in the hotel in Vegas, I enjoyed the first night with my sis. We went to the Shake Shack. And when Seth came, he and I met at the Shake Shack. When I saw him, I smiled super hard. He was the missing piece to the puzzle. We always had this bond with the same mom and dad out of all 5 kids, 11 months apart. Lord, that afro needed help. I didn't know I would be doing hair out here. He was living from place to place and refused to leave Los Angeles just like our father. In Fairfield, if you saw me, you saw Seth. If he was fighting, so was I. I had no problem going to the Shake Shack again. We had just had it the night before. I said then that this chicken sandwich was the best. I didn't mind having 1 or 2 more. I couldn't wait. It was so juicy, and the lemonade, you could tell, was fresh. Seth was waiting to get in the hotel. We made it back. I got that afro together and braided cornrows in his head. I was happy he was sober. June was always talking about him, clowning, and how he could get when he gets drunk. Well, when he's sober was when I saw him. I was good and happy. He took a shower, and we left. He took a shower. We met up with Mom and June. Guess we shouldn't have left them together alone. My mom was complaining about how this was for her birthday, and she was putting money on everything. My sister didn't get it. She told her mom this was for her. Our sister trip was for our mother, and everything really got messed up as soon as Mom brought my brother some Crown Royal. Seth had nothing to drink for 2 days, and on the 3rd day, we were walking the strip, and we went into Walgreens to get water, and my mom brought this bottle. Seth said, I didn't ask you to buy it. She said, but I know you wanted it. I was pissed. You are his mother. You know he is an alcoholic. And once he started drinking, he didn't stop. He was annoyed and became very rude the rest of the way back to the hotel. That night, all the siblings went to the club. Our mom just didn't want to go. We called a taxi there. It was at the Paris Tower. June's brother worked there from her dad's side of the family. He let us in. He said we are all brothers and sisters, and for us to enjoy ourselves. We did just that. I got a strong drink. I was wasted. June was tipsy. Seth was wasted. Somehow we ended up walking all the way back to the hotel. It was like a 30-minute walk. My short self had on heels, and June went to pull out some flip-flops. I said, "Where's mine?" She said, "You should have brought some." Who thinks about bringing extra shoes? She said, "Someone who knows better." I didn't go out, and I didn't know. My feet were yelling at me. I was limping, and they were laughing at me. Seth gave me a pair of his socks. I said, "Who wears 2 pairs of socks to the club with dress shoes?" He said, "Be thankful I do." In this case, I was very thankful. I walked in a pair of black socks all the way back to the hotel. We were cutting through other casinos for the air, and Seth was sliding on escalators singing. We were all singing. We were all having fun. We saw Seth grab a drink in the casino. While we waited in this long line to get on the elevator, he had 3 more drinks. When we got upstairs, my feet were on fire. I was almost crawling to the door at this point. When we got through the door, my mom asked, "What's wrong with you?" I told her those heels hurt and my feet are speaking another language. She pulled out this weed rub that took away pain. She bought it from the marijuana club in California. Side note, my mom started smoking with us at like 12 and 13 years old. She would say, "I'd rather y'all do it with me than someone else." She was actually rubbing my feet. I was shocked at who this lady was. What did you do with my mother?" She continued to rub my feet with hemp oil. I tell you, my mom has everything cannabis in her house to heal something. She uses cannabis butter to cook with. She got it from her medical cannabis club. My sister June asked my brother Seth a question about parenting. And when I challenged his opinion, this fool lost his mind. Why would June ask our intoxicated brother anything? It sparked an argument with him and I. My brother made a statement and said, "Just like you couldn't say ultimate." "Bro, you took this to another level," I said, and I started crying. I grabbed my purse and left. I went downstairs to call my husband. He talked to me and tried to calm me down. My brother knew what he said. He knew what to say. He knew that word my dad had beat me real bad over, so he intentionally tried to hurt me. I couldn't understand why he would try to hurt me like that. He came downstairs trying to talk to me. I told him to leave me alone. He said, "Sis, I'm sorry. I was wrong." I didn't care about what he had to say. I heard stories of his behavior when he drank and the hurtful things he would say. Never did I think the same one who took the beatings with me would throw something in my face. That truly hurt me to the core. Thank you, Mom, for buying the alcohol on this trip. Seth, thank you for showing me your drunk side. Because it was our mom's birthday weekend, she wanted to play bingo. We finally made it to the bingo hall that was off the Vegas Strip. Our mom continued to complain about being tired, walking too far. It was hard to please this lady. It wasn't our fault the bus broke down. We watched our mom spend a lot of money on bingo. June and I said, "Wow, that's a lot of books." Our mom said it isn't enough. I said, "Jesus, it was 18 books. June and I got 6 books and planned to enjoy this time with our mom. I was ready to go home. My so-called best friend, Neek, didn't even see me while I was here. She knew I was here in the same city and hadn't even seen each other in 7 years. Oh well, I was ready to go home. The only reason why we didn't see Summer when we were here in Vegas was because we didn't have a rent-a-car. Henderson, Nevada is not on the strip, 45 minutes away. She said, "Mommy and all y'all are some black female dogs." She continued to clown the whole time we were in Vegas. If I had seen her, I was going to fight her. I didn't want to touch her. Just June wanted me to see her. The memories that went through my mind, June was still on the phone telling me about food places. I didn't want to repeat trip or waste my money. I told her, "I do want to see you, sis. I just don't know if it's the best time for me to be traveling, being 6 months pregnant." But June said, "I've never seen you pregnant, and I do want to see Summer, okay, sis?" I said, Summer is too disrespectful, and as much as I want to slap her in the mouth, God won't allow me to. See, everyone takes advantage that I love the Lord. While I'm being mistreated, I'm asking, what would Jesus do? I asked to love like Jesus, and I said, June, I pray that this trip turns out real well. This was a test I had to pass. Your family is your biggest test because you didn't choose them. My sister June knew how sick I stayed. I tried everything the doctors asked me to do. The doctors told me to try these lollipops and also get a bracelet for morning sickness. The problem with that is none of it worked. I didn't just have this in the morning. I stayed sick all day. I prayed and asked for an appetite. The only thing I did not want to do was take my mom's advice. I just didn't see any other way if I was going to make it through. I was getting bigger because I am petite. The problem was the baby wasn't getting as big as it should be. I needed to eat. I had to eat. I smoked 3 puffs, just enough to stop being sick in the morning. It worked. And it stopped me from being nauseous. I was able to eat, and I was eating well. My husband cooked anything I thought I wanted. The doctor was happy to see me putting on weight. We noticed the baby moving more. He asked if I'm still getting sick all day. I told him not as much. He said, well, maybe the morning sickness is gone. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. I learned that if I can control my nausea in the morning, then it would help me stop being sick all day long. As a middle-aged pregnant woman and as a foster kid, I wasn't trying to put my child in harm's way. I didn't want the risk of CPS trying to take my child as well. I'm not promoting smoking weed during pregnancy. I'm saying that this is what I did in order for me to eat. The side effects of low birth weight wasn't an issue. The weight gain was going well for my babies growing so big. I truly praise the Lord. I didn't believe anyone knew how truly sick I was except my husband, my kids, and my brother, the barber, who would see me get sick. I wanted to tell Aunt Alicia. I just didn't have an idea how. She came by the salon anytime. Whatever I thought I wanted to eat, she would try to make sure I would eat it. Ricky just wanted to help me gain weight for the baby, and it seems it was the only thing we could talk about. We didn't talk about what was real. I felt it. I just wanted to ignore it. Jesus, another one. I had only 20 teeth left in my mouth. If this one hurt this bad, they would take it. I was not even chewing my food at this point. I was just swallowing it. Ricky asked me to come into the kitchen to help him cook. He said, babe, if you pay attention to how I cook, you could cook like this all the time. He started to talk about when the baby came and how he was going to teach the baby this way. He thought the baby was a boy. I made an appointment with the dentist when I got back. Ricky said, are you okay? I said, my tooth. He said, this is why I try to make you soft food. I see how hard it is for you to chew meat. I know it's hard for you to eat. I said, it's harder with no teeth. I'm really trying. He said, well, you have to try harder, at least for the baby. My husband came and kissed me on the forehead, and he saw my tears fall. Ricky wiped them. I felt this love for my husband again. I had been stuck in my own anger towards him, towards myself. I couldn't tell him that because I knew I was more scared than ever to lose him. My secret was like waiting for a bomb to explode. My husband said, do you know if we are really going to try to make this family work? I said I would let him know once I got back from Vegas. I needed to leave, clear my head. I wanted to get on the plane. This was too much. I said, Lord, help me, Father. I was either going to have it all or lose it all. My husband was acting sweet, nicer than I ever saw him in the time I had been with him. Unfortunately, I should have not told my sister. She said, sis, I'm sorry to say this, but it's only because you're pregnant. I said, no, it's not. She said, it happened to me. And once I dropped the baby, he went back to act and was worse than ever. I hadn't seen June for a year and a half. I wasn't going to start drama. I needed to see my sister. I had been holding on to so much. She didn't know the truth. I wasn't feeding it into anything. I was getting on this plane. She was my sister. I just needed love, to be spoiled and loved by my big sister. Despite her unsolicited comments, she had been worried sick about me because I needed to gain more weight. My tooth was hurting too much. I would deal with that later. My sister was coming from California, and we were all born and raised. I was from St. Louis. I didn't know Belleville had an airport in Millstadt called Allegiant. The tickets to Vegas was $76 round trip, and the cost of the seat altogether cost me $118, with tax included. Not bad for my budget. I rubbed my belly. I said it was my baby's first time flying. I said, you as well. I didn't get sick in the air, but I did need to eat, so I pulled out an apple. I was in love with Gala apples. I put the whole bag in my carry-on bag. I took a bite and chewed it 10 times. It didn't matter how long it took me to chew it, as long as the baby felt the food. Our plane landed at the airport at the same time. We hugged, went to get the rental, and she asked how I felt. I told her I was nauseated. We went straight to the dispensary and got some medicine. I looked around. It was the Wiz Khalifa dispensary. We went to eat. She said, now how do you feel? I said, I'm no longer nauseous. I got a vape pen. In Vegas, it was legal. My sister said, let the plant the Lord made heal you. I could smoke in public and eat like crazy. I was shocked. The people didn't look at me crazy in the dispensary. I wanted an In-N-Out burger. We got a burger. June said, it takes a while to eat, huh? I said, yes, but it's okay as long as the baby is now satisfied. I normally don't like fancy stuff on my burgers like Thousand Island, but as a child in California, In-N-Out burgers were made for this sauce. We arrived to the hotel, which was a town in its own self. The Link Hotel is where we stayed in Las Vegas. I should have known that it was going to be nice. We split the hotel 50-50. 2 nights and 3 days. Cost us $550. June didn't play about that 3-star stuff, especially since I was pregnant. The Link Hotel had its own In-N-Out burger, its own bars, its own shopping area. I looked around and said, you really don't have to go out to the strip. The Link is its own strip. My sister said, that's the Ferris wheel from the highway. I said, we have to get on the Ferris wheel before we leave. I called my husband to let him know we landed and made it to the hotel. This was Thursday night, our first night. I was enjoying our sister time. We talked and ate and decided where we were going the next day. I said, we can save Saturday to see Summer since it's a 45-minute drive. June said, I have a makeup artist coming to the room to do my makeup tomorrow. June hit me with Alita. I said, yes. She said, do you remember the surgeon that I was talking to for a whole year? I said, yes, ma'am. The one you love, Jason. She said, yes. There's something I have to tell you. I said, what is it? She said, he's married. I gasped for air. It's really difficult to hear from my sister to know that she is messing with a married man and has been for a whole year. I thought about his wife. My sister was doing the same thing as someone else has just done to me. The sense of entitlement that came with that spirit. There was no shame, no remorse. My God, my God. I held my pregnant belly. I adjusted myself in bed. This man went around and slept with someone else, and his wife had no idea. Wow, me all over again in Vegas. Except my sister was the other woman. I asked, what do you think will come of this? June said, I'm fully aware of the situation, and I plan on continuing it. You are the only one who knows he is married. She talked about what they did and how much she loved him. I don't think she ever got the concept. Yes, you're my sister, but I'm married. What you're doing with someone else's husband is what someone did with mine. How could you know? I didn't tell anyone in my family. The Holy Spirit said, look in the mirror. I said, yes, Father. I was in no way, shape, or form better than my sister. This is why you should remain faithful. The woman my husband slept with had a man that she was sleeping with at home. Look at the domino effect from my husband. I cheated on my husband. Now I was pregnant with the secret. My sister was sleeping with a married man and was in love with him. I surely did know who Mercer was sleeping with on the side. Even when you didn't see him, he was working. God will keep you. I thank Jesus of Nazareth. He has protected me from all danger and diseases. God kept me covered even when I knew I didn't know what I needed covering for or from. When I didn't pray, he still kept me. That's why my praise was so real. My God has never left me nor forsaken me, not even when I lost my way, not even when I put people before him. God still showed me mercy. He blessed me with a baby in the middle of this storm. I call hell. My whole life has been hell. For me, Jesus is my heaven on this earth. June seemed like she was pretty much done talking about this married doctor of hers. June was an anesthesia technician. She was right there with all the doctors. I figured it was like some Grey's Anatomy. Everybody slept with everyone. We talked a little longer until my sister dozed off. I called my husband. I really missed him. He said, "Hey, babe, how is it and how's the baby?" I said, "We're good. The baby is sleeping." He asked the infamous question, "What did you eat?" He asked if I got sick. I told him I did, but I had a cartridge, so it stopped me from feeling nauseous. I told him that I missed him and decided right then and there that I wanted our marriage to work. He said, "I want it, but we need marriage counseling." I hated every time he said it, but I knew he was right. We did need marriage counseling. I was on the phone, smiling from ear to ear, rubbing my belly. Then reality slapped me. This secret I had. Why did I have to? Is this baby? We said our I love yous, and he told me to tell the baby that daddy loves him or her. We got off the phone. I laid down and prayed to the Lord. Please let this baby be my husband's. I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning. I was searching my bag real hard. I knew I should have set the apple right there on the nightstand. My sister saw me digging for an apple super fast, but it was too late. I started to throw up. I ran to the bathroom. I wasn't even awake for 5 minutes. So after she checked on me in the bathroom, I got cleaned up, hit the pen, and ate the apple. June said, "We've got to get you somewhere to eat. I'm taking you to the spot that I go to every time." I said, "I'm going to In-N-Out Burger because it's right there." Friday was a lot for me, and despite not seeing Summer Friday, spending it with June had me already wanting to go home. How this trip was about me was beyond me. My sister went all the time to Vegas. Any reason to get away. June was gone, whether it was Maui, Vegas, or Brazil. No worries. The only issue is I had was she would take her last of her money and leave. Then need to call me. "Hey sis, can you send me some money until payday?" See, you don't get to piss off your money anyway. Then come after what God has blessed me with. That was her life, how she lived. I got dressed in this red maxi dress June gave me that I looked so fat in. I was 6 months looking like I was past due. We got the first phone call from Summer this morning. June said, "Don't answer. I want her to be surprised when we get there." Even if we wanted to surprise Summer at this point, she would be more pissed than surprised. We hadn't even made it there. June was bragging about this soul food. She said, "Alita, the catfish, girl, makes you want to slap your mama." I said, "Jesus, I just want breakfast food." She said, "As long as you eat." When we arrived at M&M Soul Food Restaurant, the parking was horrible. The place was packed. Everyone wanted to eat was there. The shocking part was that there was no waiting, which made the baby and I very happy. I ordered turkey, bacon, eggs, smothered potatoes, and orange juice. June had a catfish meal, which came with yams and greens. The waiter was really upbeat and nice. A happy waiter is a happy meal. You could smell the aroma from our food all the way until it landed to our table. Now, I know what I ordered. However, she didn't say that her plate was going to look like that. That catfish looked like it was perfectly cooked. June broke off a piece and smoke came out of the fish. I wanted to snatch her plate, and the baby wanted the yams. The yams were so caramelized, and those greens, they smelled like they had been cooking for hours. I didn't want to eat the fish because I had never had fish for breakfast. The smothered potatoes, I was shocked because I had never been to a soul food restaurant that served smothered potatoes. They were cooked right. They had green and red peppers and onions, just enough black pepper to where you could see it, but barely. It was so good. I was happy. The baby was kicking. We were in business. I started mixing the eggs and the potatoes. They even had green chives. It was just pure love all in this food. This place had to be the highlight of my trip. I was so glad we came. I said, sis, I'm going to use the restroom before we get on the highway. She said, cool. I got back, we paid and left. June looked at her phone. She said, oh crap. Summer called 10 more times. Now she's sending messages, cursing us, calling us bees. I said, listen, June, I know you want to see her, but maybe we shouldn't go. I saw Summer was pissed, but here's the thing. Why was she mad? You have your sisters that came into town and were driving 45 minutes to see her. Looks like we couldn't even blame the pregnancy. I really didn't want to go. I didn't like her spirit. There, I said it. If she wasn't my sister, I would never deal with someone who calls me a B as my first name. I will pray for them, but they're not in my circle. June and I finally made it on the highway. June started talking about how she understands how Summer felt. June said to me, you have to understand she has always felt left out. I said, but mom gave us all up. She acts like we always had mom, and that is so far from the truth. In her mind, it was always us three. It was definitely us three getting beat with chickenpox by her dad. Now, who beats kids with chickenpox? Her daddy. Yet, he wouldn't touch her. June said, that is not Summer's fault either. I said, it's true. Just like it's not our fault that no one could touch Summer. Now, that pain as the belt hit us, you could hear the bumps pop. It was us three. Why do I need to feel bad for us for being us, the three amigos? June said, you remember when they changed our last names? I said, yes. It wasn't even legally done. There is a part of my school record that has her dad's last name. All of this so my real dad couldn't find us. Our mom was a piece of work. This man didn't know us, and he was going off what she told him. She gave this fool stranger permission to beat her children. I said, June, don't get me wrong. I know for a fact she didn't have a good childhood either. Once he didn't have us to beat on, she was all that was left. This is why I feel so strongly that we don't have a reason to compete for whose life was worse. Give me some credit. I still love you and want a relationship despite who your father is and what he has done. She always feels like everyone's life was better than hers. Even though we grew up in foster care, I don't look at it like that. I look at it like all 5 of us survived that mess. God bless all 5 of us to get out of it. Can we please show the Lord some love for saving us all and try to build a good relationship as grown children? Now, when the spirits you carry with you or our relationship jeopardizes my health and attacks my peace, hey, you're my blood and I love you dearly, but have a good life. I'm not mad at you. However, I have to learn to love you from a distance. I'm not crazy. This makes sense to me, but not to June. She will try to keep this broken family together with every breath. I can forgive and let go. She can't. One minute, our sister loves us, and the next minute, she hates us. Well, at this minute, she hates us. We just didn't know it. I stopped talking for a second. June was going on about 85 to 95. It's a 45-minute drive, but June was making it a 22-minute drive. This was not Grand Theft Auto. We did not steal this car. She was tailgating. I said, June, we got insurance on this car, but we don't need to use it. She said, we good. They should be in a slow lane. Oh, Lord. Not they should move for you. She was going in and out of lanes. She looked super calm. She was going 15 miles over the speed limit. I was holding on to the side of the door so tight My hand was hurting. I said, this is why I don't do highways at all. I felt sick. One hand was on the baby and the other one was holding the door. I started praying for protection. I didn't want to talk to her while she was driving, especially since I was driving with Lydia from Fast and the Furious. But I had to tell her how I was feeling. I said, June, I don't think we should go. She said, I am having the same feeling, but I can't. I have to stand for the children. Jesus, I forgot about her children, Samuel and Abraham. They had strong Bible names. I hated the stories I heard. I said, does she really tell them that I should have aborted you and I hate you? June said, yes. I said, it to be in bipolar. Still, no child should hear that, especially from the woman who had them. Unhealed people hurt people. I wanted to meet my nephews. We just made it. My spirit of discernment is saying no, no, no. I looked around as June parked in Summer's driveway. It didn't look that bad on the outside. June said it's a mobile home. It looked like a regular home to me. It had a fence around it with 2 broken cars on the side of the yard. I waddled right up to the front door and knocked. I heard one of the boys say, I can't open the door for you because my mom is at work. I said, who am I talking to? He said, Abraham. I said, hi, Abraham. I'm your auntie Alita, your mom's sister. And I heard Samuel say, I know you. I said, can you let me in? I'm your aunt. Your aunt needs to use the restroom. Auntie is pregnant. And Samuel, let me in, please. Samuel opened the door. I went to the bathroom. Abraham quickly shut the door as I waddled and got back in the car. Running outside from her job was Summer yelling, you streetwalkers need to leave. You don't have to tell me twice. Here goes the peacemaker, June. Said, Summer, stop it. Summer was now by the car. She spat on the car and said, leave. June started laughing. I didn't see anything funny. I called our mom and said, Mom, this little girl just spat on the car. Ew. This is the most nasty, inhumane thing you can do. June laughed and said, I'm going to beat your tail. June jumped out the car, Miss Trackstar, and she chased Summer. They were running and yelling. My nephews were watching the show. I said, Mom, this is some straight hillbilly mess. My mom was laughing as well. I said, see, y'all used to this behavior and y'all tolerate it. Bye, Mom. I got off the phone. They finally got tired of running. Summer kept yelling at June. Stupid so-and-so couldn't answer my calls yesterday. I don't want to talk now. Y'all can leave. Then she said to the boys, don't let no one in my house. She looked at us and said, I don't care who it is. She was doing way too much. Her sons were watching her act like this. I must remind you, her job was 10 feet away. They must have seen her act like this before. She started walking back to her job. I had seen enough crazy stuff today. I said, look, I ain't trying to call the Jesus card, but my spirit is telling me that we should not go back. June said, I promised them ice cream. We will go grab something from Wendy's, sis. Look across the street. She said, what? I said, the highway. We can just leave. She said, I'm not breaking my promise to Samuel and Abraham. I said, who told you to promise? I saw her turn back the car to Summer's house. The baby was over it, and so was I. Nevada was really the desert. The heat was crazy hot. Hot and pregnant in a dress that made me look like an 18-wheeler. My aggravation already was on an all-time high. We knocked on the door, and the boys let us in. Summer started talking trash. I ignored her. I decided not to waste my time dealing with her mouth. I sat on the couch with my nephews, Samuel, who was talking to me. Summer screamed, don't talk to her. Samuel kept talking to me. He said, don't worry. She's like this all the time. I said, how do you deal with it? He said, I close my ears so I don't hear her. Abraham was staring at us but wouldn't speak. She said, don't, and he didn't. Samuel said, Abraham is really scared of my mom. Abraham said, no, I'm not. Samuel was the youngest. She was yelling at June and everyone in the house too much. I got up and took Samuel by the hand and took him to the hoop arcade they had. The dog even followed us. I always wanted one of these in my house. Basketball was always my free world. I definitely could be less mad. I asked him to shoot the ball so I could see his form. I would do whatever I could to help him with the sport that we loved. I did. I said, "Did you know that your auntie is a basketball coach?" Samuel smiled from ear to ear. You could see the excitement. When we started shooting hoops together, I enjoyed myself with my nephew. The noise in the background was too much. June and Summer were still yelling and cursing out each other. I didn't want to hear it, so I put in my earphones. I had an extra pair and put in both of my nephew's ears. They didn't need to hear all of this disrespect between sisters. We were jamming, singing, and smiling, praising the Lord. I couldn't hear anything but the music in my ears. I had my nephew shoot the ball, and then I shot the ball and gave him some pointers. He was 8. I took the ball and told him to hold it like this. I grabbed the ball, then showed him how to make a T with his hands. I said, "Make sure that you flick your wrist." He shoots. He scores. I gave him a high five. Now, these were memories I was happy to have. I took my earpiece out. I turned around. 2 girls were at the table, one sitting across from June and one sitting across from Summer. Lot lizards. I asked June, "Where did they come from?" She said, "Summer called them." I said, "Who are they?" Summer got loud and said, "They're my real sisters, and they ride for me." I said, "Why did you bring them here? To fight your real sisters?" She shrugged her shoulders. I walked over there and I slammed my hand on the table so hard they heard it. That was the real wood effect, or I was just upset. It was so loud the 3 lot lizards, including my sister Summer, jumped. I said, "I dare someone to jump, stupid." They looked at each other and didn't say anything. I said, "I don't know what Summer told you about us, but you will get mollywopped. I'm just letting you know that we are straight from the hood, and that's not the way we do things." I said, "Summer." I went up to her and snatched her by her shirt. "I see you, and I will never mess with you again. You had the nerve to sit up here and try to have June and I jump, and I'm pregnant? I will break you in half. I'm done dealing with you." I still had her by the shirt. She was yelling, "You broke my phone." I said, "I don't care. When on the phone, you run your mouth. Now I'm in your face. Say something now. Don't play with me, Summer. I'm done." I said, "Samuel and Abraham, Auntie loves you dearly. Your mama is a crazy lunatic. She just tried to have your aunties jump with y'all in the house." I walked outside and tears were streaming down my face. I knew I needed to calm down because I was shaking at this point. I sat in the car praying and calling Jesus, asking, "Why did you bring me here to this mess?" It wasn't Jesus that was driving. I was so mad. I called Ricky. Holding my stomach, I told him what happened. He said, "Oh my goodness, this is too much. Y'all can never get along. I don't know why you even went down there. Do you want to stress the baby out?" He acted like I asked for this. I said, "I will call you later." I hung up and knew I wouldn't tell him anything else. What was the point? I can't even vent to you. Ricky is never on my side. I started looking for my keys to the rental, and they were not in my purse. I went back in the house and saw them on the table. I said, "June, I'm ready to go." I went to go grab the key and Summer snatched it. I walked back to the car. "I'm not doing this. I am ready to go." I called my mom and she called her husband. My mom said, "I can't figure out what's going on and why June is still in the house." I said, "June is in there trying to play peacemaker no matter how much destruction is in her face. Mom, she wants to go in and try to be Ayanna fixing my life. June can't fix this family. Only Jesus can fix this family." My mom said, "Maybe June feels like it's her fault." I said, "Mom, we all have our own personalities and we all have our own lives. And June wants to be the person to put this family back together." I sat for 10 minutes in the car. I said, "Mom, here comes Samuel outside. I will call you later." I opened the door and he hugged me and I was eating. He asked me how the baby ate. We even talked about Jesus, and I stopped crying. My nephew wanted to touch the baby, and he did. I had to calm all the way down until Summer came outside acting stupid and being childish, like nothing ever happened. I was hurt. I told her, "Get out of my face before I hit you." June said, "Listen to her." I said, "No, you pacify this behavior. This is unacceptable. I will not tolerate it." Summer waved the rental car keys and started running around saying we weren't going anywhere until I talked to her. I said, "Lord, I can't wait to get home. Who spent $700 and some change with the whole baby on the way for this? This was not Love and Hip Hop, yet every trip it had been nothing but drama. Summer legit reminded me of Tommy. My sister had Tommy's mouth and she was crazy. I couldn't chase her. I would not be chasing her. June said, Alita, she will give back the keys if you talk to her. My anger with my sister had been steaming for years of her mouth. I didn't know how to fix this, but I had one rule. Once you cross that line, Caroline, we're done. Seeing those girls there, I didn't see how I could talk calmly. June felt since the girls had left, we should talk. I said, well, you can talk to her yourself. I didn't need keys to walk. I took off walking in hot Nevada. I didn't know where I was going, but I was walking and crying because this is crazy. I definitely wouldn't ever come back to see her. Here came Summer driving in the car, yelling my name. I kept walking. I felt the cramp, so I prayed to the Lord to protect the baby from this mess. I said, please don't let this stress hurt the baby. I prayed, and my prayers of protection. No weapon formed against the baby shall prosper in the name of Jesus. Amen. I made it to the gas station. It was a 15-minute walk. And a 15-minute walk in Henderson, Nevada in May is hot as hell. Yep, I was definitely not going to hell. I needed water and got a core water. The water made the cramps subside. The doctor said that when you have Braxton Hicks contractions, drink plenty of water for the baby will have more room. And they will stop. I called the police. They came to the gas station. I explained to them how she took my keys and that they didn't belong to me. I explained that it is a rent-a-car. They said, stay here. We want to see her. They came back and said because she didn't get physical, we cannot make her give back the keys. I said, sir, what do you mean you can't make her give back the keys? You're the police. He said, if she didn't hit me, they couldn't get back the keys. One officer looked at me and said, are you sure she didn't hit you? Because if she hit you, she's going to jail. He looked at my stomach and it clicked. If she hits a pregnant woman, she's definitely going to jail. I couldn't send my sister to jail, not even on her worst day. Even in my body, wanted to say yes, but I couldn't lie. The police said they would go talk to her again, but there was nothing more they could do. One officer said, try to have a better day, ma'am. I said, getting my keys back would be a better day. I started to pray, Jesus, please fix this. Lord, the cops can't even help get me, but I know you can. Lord, get my keys back in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. I walked out of the gas station and started walking back. I heard June yelling my name from the other side of the road. She was in the rental. June pulled in the gas station in the rent-a-car. I got in the car. How did you get the keys? She said after the police came back, she gave me the keys. I said, thank you, Jesus. You can't tell me my God doesn't hear me. The police said that they could do nothing, yet their presence was enough to get my keys back. We have certain expectations from a man just because he has a uniform on. We forget he is just a man. Take those same expectations and give them to Jesus. Jesus didn't need a uniform. He's solid. June said, Summer wants to apologize. I said, you got to be out your rabbit mind. I'm not going back to World War III. June looked at me and she saw I was too upset. I said, this was a circus. June turned around and got on the highway. June was laughing, saying how crazy all that was. I didn't see what was funny. I told her we shouldn't have come. I was still pissed at June for the day before, which was Friday. From the time my sister woke up Friday morning, she had been calling around to find out what doctor had this medicine she was looking for. When she found the doctor who had the medicine, he told her that she needed to get her blood drawn to check her levels before they gave her the medicine. She was on a mission to find someone who could draw her blood before they closed. I wanted to know what kind of medicine this was that had her do all this. I also wanted to know why she couldn't get the medicine from California. Why were you seeing a doctor here anyway? Here comes CIA Alita. She paid the money for the blood to be drawn. I waited in the car. June got back in the car and said she was happy that it was over. We made it back to the Lenox hotel room. I left to go to In-N-Out Burger at the Lenox. The In-N-Out Burger was in the hotel strip. I was killing these burgers. The baby was happy as me. I was asking the baby, are you a boy or a girl? I was just walking back to the room. I walked through the casino and just took in the scenery. The Lenox as a whole was a beautiful and as bougie as my sister was. This child had taste. This was nice. I didn't think that I could go back to a cheap hotel. Even the beds felt plush. I sat down and pulled out a 20 and put it in a machine. I hit for 80 real quick. I cashed in my ticket. I used to be addicted to scratch-offs, lottery machines, and lottery numbers. Talk about throwing your money right in the toilet. I had to stop wondering why I was broke, and I saw how much money I was spending from my check. There was no telling how much money my husband spent. He didn't get into numbers and scratch-offs until he met me. I knew not to go back down that path. I just got on the elevator and went to my room. My sister said, come on, we have to leave. June said the doctor called and said that her prescription was ready for pickup. We went with this doctor stuff. Here we go with this doctor stuff. We got in the car and she put in the GPS where we went earlier that day and picked up her prescription. We got there and she got it. And then she went to one more store. As soon as I saw her in the store, I grabbed the bag and I took the medicine bottle out. It was some long word. It was a 30 supply taken once a day. She was on her way out. I took a picture of the bottle so I could look it up, the name later. I saw her walking back. I was mad because she didn't even have to bring me. All I knew right then and there was that she was popping pills. And I wanted to know what pills she was popping. We got back to the Lenox Hotel. When we got up to the room, June jumped in the shower. She took about 3 or 4 showers a day. She was super OCD. Once I knew she was in the shower, I grabbed my phone and I looked up the phenamine. Google said phenamine was a controlled substance due to its chemical similarities to a stimulant, antihistamine, making it available only with a prescription. Your doctor may prescribe phenamine if you are obese, meaning that your body mass index is less or equal to 30. It had been a while since I saw my sister. She was 280 pounds the last time in Vegas. Now she was $135. I talked to our mom before I left the salon. She mentioned that June was getting small quickly. She said she believed that June was playing with her nose. My mom's conversation, you have to know 80% is embellished and 20% is fact. She said your brother also does it. I actually told that lady I was going to call her back. I called Seth and I asked him if he played with his nose. He said, why do you ask that? I said, your mom. He said, I do play with my nose from time to time. What is it to you? I said, okay, sir, your body, it's your business. I will pray for you, child. I just asked. I thought she was lying. This is why June invited me to Vegas. She had to get her pills. The discovery about this was very hurtful, but not as hurtful as understanding and witnessing the physical abuse and the mental abuse she went through for 14 years with Cyrus. One day I got a call from jail. It was my sister. I put my credit card info in as fast as I could. They said the minimum was $25. The amount didn't matter because my 9-month pregnant sister was in jail. She was crying so hard. She said he called the police on me and said I hit him. I felt so bad. I asked why didn't they take that fool? She said this was the first time this fool didn't hit me. I asked what happened. I knew what it felt like to go to jail pregnant over a man. She said after all the times I saved him from going to jail, she wasn't lying either. Seth gave him a 2-piece and a biscuit after I fought him, and she didn't give that man's name up for nothing. Needless to say, after she got out of jail, she went into labor a week later. I called my sister. She would say, I bought the baby this and that, and I asked what Cyrus got his daughter. She said Cyrus told me because he didn't want any more kids that I would have to be financially responsible for her. And to this day, he has kept that word. He will do whatever for their son, but nothing for their daughter. I had been on the phone talking to June, and here walks in King Tut, calling her female dogs. He would be screaming at her about how fat she was. One day Cyrus said, I'm the only man willing to be with your fat female dog self. Cyrus still had the nerve to cheat on my sister. She found out about him cheating when my nephew came home from a fishing with his father. He said, Mom, Dad was with another woman taking pictures of her. This was my sister's highest weight. Then again, little Cyrus had seen everything his father had done to his mother. The last draw for her was when they had a birthday party for my niece, and his male cousin said something to June. She responded to him, and Cyrus walked up to my sister and slapped her in front of everyone. He said, you disrespect me in my face, and to be a streetwalker and try to talk to my own cousin. My sister was devastated. The police were called, and he kept calling her names. He dogged her in private and in public. I watched it and I felt it. I also had been with someone like Cyrus, Matthew. As long as I didn't see Ricky as bad as Matthew or Cyrus, I allowed and took just as much. I was basing my relationship expectations off of other people's relationship. There wasn't a relationship I could mimic. That was good. We didn't have married friends to help show us how to be married. Hell, we didn't have mothers or our fathers to show us a healthy relationship either. My mother was beating up in front of us as well as allowing others to hurt us. It was the only form of love we saw. As I went through it, she did also. Watching my sister tell us everything that was going on with her also was one of the reasons I didn't tell anyone what was going on with me. I watched how the same people that came to my sister's aid sure got on the phone and talked about her like a dog. I was deeply saddened, knowing that she not only did this man terrorize my sister, he put her in such a depression that she would go through all of this now to stay thin. The saddest part of it was that she hadn't been with him in all this time, and this clearly was still a touchy subject. It now explained why, since we had been here, she only drank water and then ate only dinner. My sister was still being terrorized in her own head by him. Physical abuse hurts, and after you take so many punches, you can start to calculate. You know how a bruised lip takes 4 days to heal. A bruise that is red will heal in 3 days. A bruise that is purple will take about 9 days to heal. The marks that never leave are the nail marks embedded in your skin from being choked. A person really has no regard for your life when they're choking you. Now, aside from this horrible experiences of physical abuse, and I don't say this lightly, some people don't ever make it out alive. There were times when I just gave up fighting just to get it over with. I often wondered if my sister felt the same way. Sometimes I worried for my sister more than myself. When I heard his voice, Cyrus made me a believer through the phone that he would kill my sister. The mental abuse was long-lasting. Those words would go straight to your heart and to all your insecurities. And the mental abuse about how a person feels about themselves. I do believe in mental and physical abuse to be both male and female. When I first met my husband, I was the abuser. I felt that I had a right to hit him, my boyfriend, whenever he said something I didn't like. I treated him the way that Matthew treated me until one day this woman saw me hit him, and she said in front of both of us, Jay, you can't hit that man. That is a grown man. And he said, I tried to tell her. I had to learn to respect people and to keep my hands to myself. Verbal abuse on both sides always hits below the belt. Who can say the worst thing? Once you speak hateful words, you can't take them back. You can rebuke it if you know how to. God tells us directly in Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. This is why 10 times out of 10, those words pierce your heart like sharp knives. Yet we act as if God didn't tell us to watch our mouths and mean it. Your words can curse you or bless you. Instead of judging my sister, God allowed me to pray for my sister to at least eat. I asked Jesus to slow her down and let her see what you see in her, Father. I said, Father, please heal her heart. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. No matter what my feelings were, none of this would change the fact that the first time meeting my nephews shouldn't have been like this. I was stressed out. I stayed quiet for the rest of the ride. Once we got back to the hotel, all I could think about was how much I missed and loved my husband and wanted to make this marriage work. I called and he promised me that we would get through this. I told him I wanted us to raise our son together, like we did with the other 3 kids. He said, yes, babe. He told me that he was going to take off work for 1 week once the baby was born to help me, and that I could be off work for 6 weeks. He would also take care of all the bills. I was so happy. I got off the phone all smiles. I prayed and talked to my baby. I had to take a nap. The day was still early. The drama club was too much for me. We woke up later that night and grabbed some food. We ate again and talked about what happened. And our baby sister Summer called 50 times. She wanted to apologize. And she started calling the hotel. That girl was spoiled. June said, well, she knows you don't play. I said, respect goes a long way. You have to teach people how to treat you. We had a couple of hours left in the day before we went to the Ferris wheel, and I needed to do June's sew-in. I had already dyed the bundles in the bathroom before we left to see Summer. They were about dry. I braided June's natural hair. Jesus, she was tender-headed. She said, ouch this and ouch that. She was getting on my nerve, and as I started putting the tracks in her hair, she stopped halfway and said, what are you doing? I said, June, I used the flip method so that way you have less shedding. June said, so you don't cut the tracks? I said, no, ma'am. She said, well, my beautician at home cuts the tracks. My sister was telling me how to do her sew-in the way her stylist did in Vallejo. I didn't play that with regular clients, let alone family. I said in my head, why didn't you go get your hair done by her instead? You were paying me $165 and her $200. I said, sis, to be honest, with her cutting all your tracks is why you have so much shedding. And she was still talking, saying, well, she has done it with every sew-in. I said, that doesn't make it right. I kept sewing until she said with an attitude, can you please cut my tracks? I am paying you. I said, yeah, man. I went downstairs cursing. I was super pissed. I got to the front desk. I asked the lady for a pair of scissors. She said for me to leave my ID or my phone. I said, for some scissors? She said, we want them back. I said, here's my phone. Since that was all I brought downstairs, I got upstairs, went over to the sewing that was already installed and cut every track that was flipped. I was pissed. I went over them with more thread because one thing about my sew-ins is they do not come down. I finished her hair. I was happy to be done. I thought, I'm not touching her hair again. We made it on the Ferris wheel, and it was a giant ball, and inside it could hold 40 people. There were about 20 in this one. They had a bar and places to sit, and we took pictures and enjoyed our last night in Vegas. June was talking to everyone. They had music in there. It was truly beautiful, and I am grateful that this was the highlight of our trip, especially after the day we had. The next morning, it was time to go. We were already running late to get to the airport. June started dancing outside the car to Drake when he said trips that you planned for the next week, bands were too low for the next dude so cheap. She went wild. It was my first time hearing the song. I started to listen to more gospel. June said, you drive. I was just happy to end the trip on a good note. We got in the car. We only had 18 minutes to get to the airport before June's flight left. She read her itinerary wrong. So she said, go ahead and drive. So I was like, okay, cool. I got in the car and backed out. Right now, we're trying to find the highway to jump on it real fast. Now, I was going about 45 miles per hour, and the airport was probably about 20 minutes away. We had to get there in 18 minutes so she could hurry up and get through security. She had the wrong driver. She just didn't know it. She didn't know that I was scared to drive on the highway. My own fear at first was almost like 8 or 9 years of not being able to drive on the highway because of an accident I got into when I was 18 years old. I got food poisoning at my job vending machine, the May Company, which was in Earth City. I lived with Austin, my god brother, off of Union and Cabanne in St. Louis, and I lost my apartment, or better yet, I was scared to go back. I stayed off of Oregon and Potomac on the south side. One way in and one way out. The apartment was a big one-bedroom for $250 for a 17-year-old. This would have been good, but I lived to pay $250 with all bullets that were always seeming to happen every night. Heck, you get to a point where you just stay lying on the ground. So I moved. I braided Austin's mom's hair in her favorite style, micro braids. She loved them. I hated them. She treated me like a daughter. Once she got to know me, one night I found a credit card outside of my car. I didn't recognize the name on it, but I knew it wasn't mine. I went to Northwest Plaza and went on a shopping spree for $1,500. A week later, I went to work to the May Company, got food poisoning from the vending machine. I went to the hospital via ambulance. The hospital confirmed I had food poisoning. My stomach was in so much pain than I ever felt. At this point, I was throwing up just film. They gave me a prescription for the medication. I got discharged. I got a cab back to the job and got in my car. The car that my grandma sent me. I went to Walgreens to get my prescription filled on St. Charles Rock Road. I fell asleep in the car for an hour. That's just how bad the pain was. I got my prescription and took one. It made me super sleepy. I tried to stay awake. I was trying to make it from St. Charles and Highway 70 to Union Street. I was almost at the exit in the third lane when I passed out. And when I came to, I had hit the median in a parked car. The woman that owned the car would have gotten hit, but she was on the other side, praising the Lord. I was happy to be alive. It could have gone a different way. Look at my angels protecting me from me. Now reality. I totaled the car that my grandmother gave me. The cost to fix my grandma's car was indeed $1,500. I learned that you reap what you sow. I paralyzed my own mind of thinking that everything could happen to me on a highway. 18-wheelers running me off the road, seeing the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge collapsing. I was in fear of crossing bridges. My sister didn't know that though. I stayed in the first lane going 45 miles. June said, "You got to be kidding me. Sis, I need you to jump to the third lane and go like 80 because we got to go." I said, "I'm not jumping into no one's third lane. We are going 45 and we're going to get there." She said, "Nah, sis, what do you mean? At least jump in the middle lane." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm going to stay in the first lane because these cars are going too fast." A car came on the highway and I slowed all the way down and let them in. June said, "Sis, what is your issue? You don't understand. I have 1 hour. I don't have 1 hour." I said, "I don't drive on the highway." She said, "What do you mean you don't drive on the highway?" I told her what she just told me. She said, "Oh my God, Alita, this is not the time for you to be trying to test drive. We've got to get to the airport." She was cursing. She was mad. She said, "Listen, I got to hurry up and get there." She saw how stressed I was, and June calmed down. She said, "What is it about the highway that scares you?" I told her when I'm in the first lane on oncoming cars and come on the highway, I don't know if I'm supposed to stop, speed up, or move over. If I'm trying to move over, like I don't want to hit somebody, so I slow all the way down and let them come on. She said, "Oh, not on my watch." She said, "You gonna learn today." She told me to stay in the middle lane. If you stay in the middle lane, whether they come in speedy lane or the first lane, you will be able to see everyone come on. You don't have to worry about moving until it's time for you to move over. Today is the day I listened. I stayed in the middle lane. Only by the grace of God, we both made it on time. We had 18 minutes, and I told my sister I love her so much. If we did anything else, it would be just me and her. She agreed. She had already started planning the next trip to Maui, Hawaii. I just wanted to go there my whole life. We both went our separate ways to depart Vegas. As I was on the plane, I had a few thoughts of how June and I could have handled things differently with Summer. We could have called once we touched down, or better yet, June could have been honest and told her that we were coming into town and that we might see her. I realized I had been upset from the jump with Summer, the name she called me over the phone over the years. I couldn't see why Summer acted in that manner, even after everything her father had done. I never held my siblings accountable due to their father's actions. When Summer's dad had put us in between two chairs and beat us with a belt, and the way my mom stood right there in the doorway and watched. Watching our mom watch you be beat and not help an out-of-body experience. Watching someone who was supposed to protect you allow someone to hurt you is difficult. I never understood how you can let a man you chose to be in our life also to beat us. We only got beaten because we tried to run away and our mom was too scared to leave him.